Thank you so much to our attendees that have joined us this morning and to those that might be watching this at a later date. We appreciate you tuning in to, is this the third or fourth week, Anita? Third week?
Fourth week.
Of our legislative recap. So it's going faster than I realized, probably not to you, but to us. So I know that this is always such a busy time for you. For those in the audience that weren't aware, Amplify Clearwater traveled to Tallahassee this week. We took several of our members, including several of our board members with us, and just had a wonderful visit with our partners. So, and those that represent us with our delegation and others. So excited, and thank you, Anita, for all your help and your team's help. With that, I don't want to delay. I'd let you go ahead and get started, but real quickly, thank you to our sponsors. You see them across the screen: Clearwater Gas, Clearwater Gas, the City of Clearwater, Duke Energy, Hillward, Henderson, Morton Plant Hospital, and Charter Spectrum. Without you, we would not be able to do this. So thank you so much for your partnership. And Anita, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Well, thank you. It was wonderful to have you guys in Tallahassee this week for the fourth week of the legislative session. So next week, we will officially be halfway through our 9-week session. The big news this week is that the House and Senate subcommittees have released their proposed budgets, with the full budgets expected to be posted by both chambers later today. Just some quick highlights from those budgets. Both the House and Senate proposals include $50 million for Visit Florida. That is level funding with previous years, so wonderful to see that. Both proposals also include full funding of the Sadowski Trust Fund, which goes towards affordable housing programs. In years past, that trust fund has been rated for other purposes, so definitely a big push to make sure all of those funds go towards affordable housing, knowing how important it is to our communities and our workforce. So great to see that they both have put that within their respective budgets. Quickly on healthcare budget, the House released their healthcare proposal yesterday evening. They have proposed about $250 million in hospital rate cuts. Their argument being that those hospitals have received significant funding from the federal government, PPE donations, alternative funding sources such as that. And they would take about $100 million of that $250 million, which is the state share of that funding, the state general revenue share, and transfer it to nursing workforce programs. So a lot to be seen on that. That is the initial House proposal. The Senate does not include those same rate cuts. Certainly both chambers are going to be posturing, and the hospital funding in particular is usually one of the last items decided when they go into budget conference. So definitely looking, at that, particularly knowing how, important our nursing workforce is right now, but also wanting to make sure that our hospitals aren't hurt in any way. The House also did include $10 million for healthcare professional student loan repayment programs. That's a program that's actually in statute, but has not been funded recently by the legislature. So they've put $10 million towards that program, again, to help with our workforce issues that we're experiencing. That same proposal is not in the Senate budget, but again, we'll be seeing those issues play out as both chambers enter into budget conference here in the next few weeks. The Senate budget does include a significant rate increase to nursing homes, with the caveat that funding go towards increasing wages for their providers. That includes, their nurses, their caregivers, to at least $15 per hour. So again, both chambers focusing on our workforce, making sure that people, are being paid adequately and have jobs and that are trained appropriately. So again, both House and Senate budgets expected later today. So we'll be keeping you guys updated. We'll have a lot more details once we can see the full text of those budgets. Right now, we've only seen some very high level spreadsheets. So definitely more to come on the budget side. Keeping within healthcare, the telehealth bills are on the floor of the House next week. Both the House and Senate bills will be there. They still need to reconcile the differences between the two. As a reminder, the Senate bill includes expanded use of controlled substances, as well as allowing for audio only telehealth. That same audio only allowance is not in the House version. So still kind of trying to see how they're going to reconcile those two, but it does look like we're getting some expanded telehealth options very likely this session. The House is also going to consider their healthcare COVID-19 liability protection extension. The Senate bill, as we shared, has already passed on the floor, and that bill will be on the House floor next week. So great news for our healthcare workers who have been, so impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Visit Florida extension passed the Senate floor. It is now ready for the House floor as well. As a reminder, we still have a little bit of a difference between those, a 5-year extension versus the 8-year extension in the Senate, but definitely looking like we're going to get an extension of some sort, and those bills are now ready for the floor in the House. So we'll definitely be keeping you guys updated on that. Legislation limiting the revisions to the state constitution that can be done by citizen initiatives is now ready for the House floor. It's also scheduled for its first committee in the Senate next week. This is important because it would, address some of those constitutional amendments that we've seen in the future, the minimum wage amendment being one. It would limit those from being able to put on the ballot, reserving them instead for legislative approval. So definitely something we're keeping an eye on. The broadband infrastructure bill, that's a priority of our member charter, moved through its first House committee this week. That's going to be important to expanding our broadband, particularly in rural areas. So great to see that moving in the House now. Vacation rentals is something we're always keeping an eye on. That bill passed its second Senate committee, primarily on party lines this past week. It has 1 committee left in the Senate, 2 committees still remaining in the House. Again, that would move licensing of those vacation rentals to the state under the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. It would allow registration at the local level through those online platforms, Airbnb, VRBO, those type of things, and would allow for the collection of tourist development taxes from those facilities. So that would be good for our community. Absolutely. It also grandfathers those ordinances that are in place prior to 2011, which includes the City of Clearwater's ordinance. A bill passed its second House committee and its first Senate committee this week, which would preempt local government wage mandates. We've seen this in, I believe, 4 large counties throughout the state where they have put local government wage mandates in place, particularly for contractors who work with those local governments. So this would prevent those type of wage mandates. That bill was actually TP'd and temporarily postponed in the Senate last week, but passed that committee this week. There was some concerns, that they may want to go ahead and grandfather those local governments that have already put those mandates in place. That bill is supposed to, in the Senate, go to Commerce and Tourism next. It is not on the agenda for next week. So there is some rumor that it might be done in the Senate for this year, but definitely still a lot of session to go. So we'll be keeping an eye on that to see what happens. Regulation of smoking on public beaches and parks moved through the House again this week. So that's great news for our beach communities. It would allow our local governments to prohibit smoking on those beaches, which will hopefully address cigarette butts that are being left on the beaches. So that bill, it's great to see it moving so well in both the House and the Senate. It's not something that the House has traditionally wanted to move, but it does have a lot more traction this year. So definitely something important to our community. As we've shared before, the Senate President has a priority legislation related to local government ordinances. That what was previously two bills was combined into one bill in the Senate and passed off the floor a couple of weeks ago. As a reminder, that bill would allow businesses to sue local governments if an ordinance is put into place that impacts their profits by more than 15%. It also would require local governments to conduct a business impact study before putting those ordinances into place. So that bill has passed the Senate floor. It moved through its second committee in the House this past week. What was two bills is now combined into one. So the House bill was amended to become identical to the Senate version that has passed the floor in the Senate. The Senate President kind of believes it's the preemption to end all preemptions. Certainly there's definitely a lot of concern from the local governments on what this is going to do, that particularly related to increased lawsuits that they could experience and the costs from those lawsuits as a result of this legislation. Good news this week, moving on from that, affordable housing, again, is a big topic of conversation right now. Both House and Senate bills are ready for the floor, which would authorize local governments, regardless of zoning ordinances, to approve plans for residential development projects that include mixed-use residential, even if those parcels are zoned commercial or industrial, if a portion of that project includes affordable housing. So that gives our local governments more flexibility to put affordable housing in places, particularly in denser areas like our Pinellas County. So that's definitely something that's going to be helpful, and we're excited to see that those bills are both now ready for the floor in either chamber. Very quickly, the last thing to note from this past week, again, we're in a redistricting year. The House and Senate have now combined their redistricting plans for the House and for the Senate seats, and combined those into one single resolution that has now been passed by both chambers. So we have finalized our House and Senate seats. Congressional seats are still to be determined. They put that on hold a little bit pending a Supreme Court review of the governor's proposed maps. The governor put out a proposal of his own, and they're just trying to get a better sense on if his plan would be constitutional. There's concern that if they were to pass a plan contrary to the governor's proposal, that he could end up vetoing it. And I think there's a desire not to see that happen. So they're trying to see if they can work out any issues prior to that happening. So definitely still keeping an eye on that, and any changes it could create to our Pinellas congressional districts, but not a significant amount of changes to our House and Senate seats. And with that, I think that is our high-level overview, and I would be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Anita. And for those of you on the call, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A function. We'd be happy to, Anita will be able to see those questions. So Anita, while you were discussing, do you have a feel for, and giving everybody a chance to see if we have any questions, do you have a feel for the version of redistricting that the House and Senate have now combined and agreed upon, what that might do to Pinellas County? Kind of, are there shifts in our delegation? What does that look like from a House and Senate standpoint?
Sure. So there's going to be a little bit of shifts in lines. We'll probably see some candidates that have filed in those seats maybe jumping to other seats based upon the movement in the lines. I don't think there's going to be, as far as party affiliation, I don't think we're going to see any changes in our Pinellas delegation. Senator Hooper's seat, which was a little bit more purple, is now much more red. He's picked up more of Pasco County in his seat, so he's definitely going to be safe there. So not a lot of changes in our House and Senate state seats that I anticipate.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for expanding just a little bit. Christina did put in the chat there, and for those of you who may not have seen it, to please save the date for our post-legislative wrap-up, which is March 23rd. I think we are at Ruth Eckerd Hall for that event. So please just set that date on your calendars. And of course, it's always a little bit fluid given schedules of our legislators in this session and if it might run longer, what that looks like. So, but we are planning right now for March 23rd. We feel like that's safe as of what we believe and know right now. And we hope you'll be able to join us for that. And Anita, I can't say to those on the call, if you've not met Anita and her team, they are absolutely fantastic. If you're in need of services at the Capitol or representation at the Capitol, they are the way to go without a doubt. I mean, just walking those halls with Anita and her team, no doubt the relationships that they have and have built and are well liked. And we were told by many of those that we met with that we have the best under the dome. So we are very pleased to have this partnership with you and your team, and thank you so much. We had an outstanding reception with just a packed house on Tuesday night. And so we just can't thank you enough. We had the Florida Chamber there, as well as many of our delegation and those that weren't in our delegation, and certainly members of staff and other teams. So we're very excited and very pleased with our turnout, and again, very appreciative of all your hard work and efforts on our behalf. So with that, we'll wrap up, but thank you, Anita. Good luck. I wish you endurance for the next few weeks and certainly get some rest this weekend, and we will see you next week.